is a very busy parliamentarian. In addition to being chair of the Justice Committee, he's also been an active member of a number of other important committees in Parliament that include being chairman of the Marine Industry Caucus, which I know is important to this province and to this community. He's a member of the Steel Caucus, the Auto Caucus, the GTA and Central Ontario Caucus, associate member with the Heritage Committee, Environment and Sustainability, Finance Committee. I had no idea that Mike was so good with numbers. International Trade and Industry. So, as you can see, his responsibilities there, in addition to the work that he does as co-chair of the Canada-Japan Parliamentary Friendship Movement. I think Mike told me he's been to Japan 8 times now, and which leads me to the subject of trade and what we have prioritized in our government in recent years. We're celebrating the conclusion of the signing of the Korea-Canada Free Trade Agreement. We'll have similar focus on the European Union Free Trade Agreement next week. And Mike has been front and center in these efforts, along with other members like Ed Fast, our Trade Minister, in pursuing what I believe are going to be huge opportunities for our country. Taking away these trade barriers, putting Canadian products and industry on a level playing field. And we know that Canadian products, Canadian innovation, can and will compete and bring greater jobs and opportunity and prosperity here. We have somebody in our midst. I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of innovators in the room, but I was very pleased earlier this evening to meet Mr. Fox, who is the inventor of the Fox 40 whistle. And it's a nice blue one that I've received here. I will have to fill out numerous paperwork in triplicate to report this to the ethics committee. Just to be clear, and to be clear, Mike drove me here. I didn't take a helicopter. To be sure. Mike has also been front and center in 2 other very important extra-parliamentarian or international committees, and that is the Canada-Ukrainian parliamentary group, as well as the Canada-US. Those are, of course, extremely important partnerships that we share. Our neighbors to the south, we continue to work in tandem with in so many areas, and of course, all that has been going on in Ukraine, Crimea. We recently hosted the president, as you know, and have more than affirmed our tremendous support for the troubling times that they are experiencing. And it's a reminder again of the role that Canada plays in the world. While we have been so focused, as we should be, on the economy and coming through the recession, in addition to our own defense and security needs, we play a very important role in the world. And I feel that we have got it right. We have balanced our priorities. We have reached out to the countries that needed us in times when they needed us most, when they needed to know that they had a friend in the world, when they needed to know that there was a country that really cared and understood. I mentioned Afghanistan earlier, and this was a very difficult time, to say the least, in world history, and we are still feeling the reverberations of that tumultuous time. But going to Afghanistan, as I alluded to earlier, and seeing firsthand not only what soldiers and sailors and airmen and women were doing in our name, but our diplomatic corps, our international development team, people from other departments like Agriculture Canada, helping them to rebuild their agrarian society, helping them to recapture trade opportunities with their neighbors, and they live in a very, very difficult part of the world. But I have to say the most inspirational thing that I saw happening in Afghanistan, which is a reminder of just how fortunate we are and how we should count our blessings, was to see the schools, the 50 schools that were built by Canadians and protected by Canadian soldiers, so that little Afghan girls could go to school and get an education. You know, that narrative didn't always emerge from what was taking place. And we gave 158 Canadian lives, in addition to many others who were injured and will forever carry the experience of Afghanistan throughout their life. But that sacrifice and service was done to transform that country in a way that would give them hope. And seeing those little girls now able to get an education, knowing that this is now a country that proportionately has more women sitting in their elected parliament than Canada, that their women are now much more able to be full participants in their society, that's transformative. And that's quintessential Canadian contribution. We did it as an international coalition with some 60 other countries, but we did it in a leadership role in Canada, in probably the most volatile part of their country. And we did it again at a time when our allies were looking to Canada for inspiration. And so that, to me, was one of our proudest moments in recent memory. It builds on the tremendous legacy of Canada's contributions internationally, and it sets, again, a new standard for a future generation of Canadians. And we're seeing that investment and that commitment paying dividends and will pay dividends for many, many years to come. So I'm very fortunate to have had the opportunity to see that work up close and personal. I feel very fortunate to be part of the larger team, the larger Conservative team, that, as Mike said, we were able, after, let's say, a corporate downsizing in 1993, to bring the Conservative movement together again, to bring back a competitive democracy in Canada. And Mike, I will not forget your support and your efforts at that time. You were there. Many of you were part of that rebuilding effort. I had a great discussion earlier with Mr. Frame, who reminded me when he came in by his ball cap and his tie clip of his history in our party. It's wonderful to see you here tonight, sir. Thank you. And so really, my words to you are ones of appreciation and thanks for building our party, for supporting Mike, for doing what is the important legwork that allows Mike and I to represent you. We simply cannot do what we do without you. The door knocking, the sending out of literature, the bringing together of people, the sending out of the important messages that don't always translate in our favor on the CBC and the Toronto Star. So when we speak about our government's position, our party's position, it is really often through these type of occasions, face-to-face, where we're able to give you the information to convey that message as well. And Mike does it better than anybody I know. He takes the time, he invests the time to not only understand the issues, but to speak to people in a way that really is what the essence of politics is. And so the backyard, the back pocket issues are what will matter in the coming year. We're in a pre-election mode now. We have important work that we are yet to complete in the House of Commons. We have a budget cycle that we're entering now. I mentioned the number of bills that we have in the Justice Department alone. I think it is, quite frankly, perhaps with the exception of finance, the busiest department right now in government. And so I'm really lucky to have a friend and colleague like Mike who's carrying so much of that load. And we are really lucky. I know that he is very fortunate to have such an engaged board, such a supporting community, and certainly, first and foremost, Caroline, to you and your lovely daughter, such a loving, caring, compassionate family. And I will end where I began by thanking you, and Mike, it's a real pleasure to be here in your community, among your friends and family, to say what a great job you do. And please, please, on behalf of the Prime Minister, on behalf of our party, our government, continue to send Mike Wallace to Ottawa as your representative. That's what will ensure Burlington has great representation in the House of Commons, and that will ensure that more positive results happen here in your community. Thank you all so much.